Welcome, Ryan. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. So we have with us Ryan Matjasic, HR guru. Thank you again for coming to the I Give a Shit About My Employees podcast. As an HR manager currently working in manufacturing, Ryan is deeply committed to fostering a strong workplace culture, prioritizing employee well-being, and ensuring both physical and mental health are at the forefront of organizational success. With extensive experience in international, which we'll talk about, and domestic human resources, talent development, and workplace safety, Ryan brings a unique perspective on what it truly means to support and empower employees in today's evolving workforce. So again, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Eric.
You feeling good?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you again for preparing, man. We prepared, we practiced, this is good.
I'm excited.
This is gonna be good. A lot of golden nuggets. This is an absolute, if you're still in the first 30 seconds, this is gonna be worth listening to. So tell us, let's start with your career highlights, background.
Well, I've been doing HR/organizational development, employee development for about 20 years now. And that's suddenly seeming like a very big number of years. But
it is.
It was accidental though.
Yeah.
I promise. I didn't mean to do this for a living. Actually graduated with a degree in fine arts and a degree in Japanese language and culture. So that led me to go over to Japan for a year before coming back to go to grad school or get a real job. And it just snowballed. I worked in Japan for a year and really fell in love with living and working there. And with the company I was with just kept offering me more opportunities for growth.
Nice.
Which eventually led to me managing a small office in Hiroshima. And that kind of kicked off more of the leadership and management aspect of my career. In that position, I was really fortunate. I had a boss that empowered me to try some new things, to kind of break with how we've been doing some aspects of our people management that just weren't really showing positive results. We met with some early successes. In the first 3 years, we went from 64% retention up to 85% retention. And eventually as a company, we ended up hitting 92.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was great. And it all started with, giving a shit about our employees.
Right. But retention typically in Japan is super strong. People were... So
Yes.
What was causing the 62% and how'd you get it to 90%?
Well, most of our employees were actually from outside of Japan. And so in the general industry, the average tenure, I believe at the time, was maybe 18 months. And the average retention rate was 70% for the industry. So we were below average already, and we wanted to get out of that. And so one of the first goals was, how are we going to get people to stick around? How do we get to at least beating the average? So I went out and I talked to every employee in the group. We had 164 at the time. And I went around and visited each area, met with each employee for 15 minutes while we were doing a more comprehensive group training meetings. And I got their feedback. And they told me exactly what we were doing wrong.
Got it. That's amazing.
It was very educational.
Yeah, for sure. And you listened and...
Yeah, we listened. We started making changes based on their feedback.
What are some quick high-level changes that were...
Probably some of the most significant ones were with regards to how we communicated. There was very much an us versus them mentality. Most of our employees were working remotely with clients.
Right.
And so it was a them versus the office staff. And the office staff were usually only contacting the employees if something went wrong.
Right.
If they were late for an assignment, if they skipped a meeting, or if they were absent that day. And quite often, there could be mistakes. Someone might be called up because the guy in the same city, but down the street, didn't show up for work that day, and they'd call the wrong person and kind of berate them for not being dedicated to their job.
Right.
So we realized right then and there that should not be the only touch point the office has.
Right.
Outside of that, we did have some local supervisors in a couple of the areas that would help support, but there was no formality to it. And outside of that, we had quarterly trainings.
Yep.
So there were very few touch points, and especially for people in their first year living abroad in a different country, it's daunting and it can be very stressful. So based on the feedback we got, we restructured our communication, came up with new templates and formats and workflows for any type of communication, whether it was coming from the client, one of our employees, or from an outside visitor. And we tried to formalize a structure that was more empowering for our employees.
Nice.
Finding out where they were struggling and finding out what we could do better to support them. And so that kind of laid the foundation. We just took a new mentality of, we need to do a better job of supporting them and empowering them to do their jobs.
Yep.
And then the assumed result was that our clients are going to be happier, they're going to be happier, and ideally our business will continue to be successful.
For sure, for sure. So you won awards and talk about that.
I was very
Because you took it from
humbled.
65% to 92. You didn't just get to the average, you crushed it.
I had a very, very good team I worked with.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate in working in Japan. I mean, I lived in Tokyo, Hiroshima, and Fukuoka, and I met some just brilliant people.
Nice.
And very dedicated people. And I was very fortunate when I was in Western Japan to be able to kind of pull some of those people. One of my proteges, I like to think of him as, he would probably resent that though. He was just very brilliant guy. He was the first person I spoke to that offered some complaints. Everyone else was telling me, everything's fine, don't worry, during those individual meetings.
Right.
And he said, you know what? It's not fine. This is a bunch of BS.
Right.
Last time I got a call was because of this. Had nothing to do with me. So
Right,
he started
right.
filling me in, and I was like, fascinated. Eventually I said, okay, will you help me make it better? And I made him an area supervisor.
That's awesome.
And so slowly but surely we were able to find those people who cared.
Right.
And said, okay, help me fix it. And we created a new structure that allowed them to help us. And slowly but surely we built up a multi-layer support system for our clients and for our employees that really just led to satisfaction scores from external clients go up, as well as from our internal employees. We created new career pathing, so the average tenure being 18 months suddenly went to about 2.5 to 3 years.
Nice.
Within a few years. And then that led directly to the retention rate increases.
Right.
But it was all due to a concerted effort by the team. Like, it was a challenge. But once we got everyone on
Change
board,
is always a challenge.
Yeah.
You know? I kind of talk about that with new health coaching clients.
Mhm.
Yeah, it feels like a mountain to climb, but when you look back, it's like, oh, why didn't I do this earlier?
Yeah.
And what's harder at the end of the day, to put in the work or to live status quo, right?
Yeah.
What's harder? Not liking how you look, not liking how you feel, or putting in that work, which quickly doesn't become work.
Yeah.
But similarly with HR.
Well, that's it. It starts with a single step.
Yeah.
It's that first bite, and you have to keep moving.
Right.
But a lot of people don't realize they want to make the move. They get used to that status quo
Right.
and feeling that way, and just like, oh well, this is my reality, and they don't really take into account their own power to make that change.
Nice.
And that's part of the challenge you face. Like you said, change is difficult.
That's not nice. The way you said it was nice. Yeah. But yeah. But yes.
I think it comes a lot down to that this is the way it is, or this is the way we've always done it mentality.
Right.
You've got to get past that.
Right.
And so getting people to just start to realize they can take a step towards something better is usually the hardest part.
The hardest part. Okay, so then you're in Japan. You rocked that company, and then you came back.
Yeah. I worked up to a very good level in Japan. I was really satisfied with my career. I really was I had the immigration papers to switch to permanent residency in one hand, and was looking at plane tickets to come home on the other.
Got it.
But ultimately decided, it's time to go back, take this experience, international, and bring it back to America, be close to my family, watch my nephew grow up,
Right.
Settle down a little bit. And I couldn't have had worse timing. I came home in time for Thanksgiving 2019.
Right.
And everything
COVID 4 months later.
Yeah, it was funny. I traveled back from Japan. I visited some friends in Asia and in Europe, and then came back to the U.S. And 2 weeks later, COVID was infecting those areas. So my friends teased me, "Oh, what were you doing?" But yeah, it was tough. Originally, I came back, and I was hoping to start a consulting firm and work with recruitment and training for people that were interested in going to work in Japan. And once COVID hit, the border started closing down.
Right.
I talked to my colleagues in Japan with the old company, and they said, "Yeah, we're not going to be able to do anything for a while. We're going to have to see how this pans out. Let's touch base in April." Well, by March, everything was shut down.
Right.
Yeah, so I had to pivot. That led to
That COVID, man. That COVID. I mean, it led to some negative stuff like this, but it also led to a lot of positive. For me too, I was starting a consulting business.
Yeah.
Helping owner operators of multifamily apartment buildings raise institutional capital, and then COVID hit and no deal flow. But then it led me to this. So
well, that's a good thing. Like you said, it's just a different opportunity comes up.
Right. Right.
As long as you keep that positive mental approach to it, it's like there's always going to be something out there.
Exactly. But no, the consulting idea is very. I mean, there's definitely a need out there. Does it sit in the back of your head a little bit, like that entrepreneurial bug, at some point?
That was kind of the dream, was to be able to start something for myself.
Yeah.
And it's still in the back of my mind, but someday it's just something that would be great to be able to accomplish.
Sure. I mean, there's a need and value there for sure. It's just one day doing it.
There again, it's taking that first step. That's the challenge. It's like, okay, would have to do a lot of lining up information up and reaching out and figuring how would this actually work. But yeah, it's nice. It's nice to think about revisiting that someday.
For sure. So I asked you to be on this podcast. You're a sharp guy. So why'd you agree to do the I Give a Shit About My Employees podcast?
Well, honestly, when I heard the title of it, I was like, okay, I need to find out more. I want to contribute to anything that's the message.
Nice.
I looked into what Zero Doubt Club does, and I really appreciate the holistic approach that you guys are taking.
Right.
It's not just, as we've talked about, it's not just diet. It's not just exercise. It's not just having the right mental state. It's everything together.
Correct.
And I really believe that that's how we have to approach interactions and running businesses and running teams. It's holistic. It's not just one element. We have to be paying attention to the other facets of people's lives as well.
Great.
And so yeah, once I looked into that, I was like, yes, I definitely want to partake in this.
Great. And you even mentioned in our practice, it's all about the people, right? And when you're focused on the fact that the people are the ones that make it work.
Yes. It really starts with that. Any business, it's founded on someone's brilliant idea, and they can't do it on their own, though. Right. They need to bring people in to run equipment, to produce parts, to program software. Once you start finding those people that can contribute, you need to have a good understanding of, how are you taking care of them then? They're going to come here and provide their time and work, and many companies, they take a transactional approach. I don't think that's optimal.
Right.
I've never seen it work very well. That's where you're going to see higher attrition rates. That's where you see disgruntled employees. That's where you see sabotage. That's where you see people fight at work.
Right. Productivity low, teams not gelling.
Yeah.
The list goes on.
Yeah.
So you gotta show your employees you give a shit about them.
Exactly.
That's the point.
Yeah.
So they want to produce. They want to be part of the team. They want to be happy people. They're people. They're not worker bees. You know?
Exactly. If you understand where they're coming from and meet them at their level, they're people and generally are pretty proud of the work that they do, provided they have the support and they're set up for success. And if you understand their motivations and understand why they're here, and you can tie that into a greater good or greater contribution to the whole, and maintain that, then you're going to have stronger relationships, you're going to have better productivity, and you're going to have, at the end of the day, for a business, better profitability, better operations.
Exactly. I love how you said that. And they want to be motivated.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if they don't, then they're the wrong people. And
Yeah.
get them out of here.
Yeah, then they're
Right.
not ready for it yet.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay, so how do you define a great company culture?
Gosh, I think it really starts with the communication and interactions between the different levels within an organization. If there's transparency and people are on the same page, I think that's a really strong sign that you've got a positive culture. When managers are supported and trained on how to communicate and how to have emotional intelligence, how to support their teams, you're going to really have a good culture. When you see those things, I think that's where you see those types of organizations that achieve. They're the ones that innovate. They're going to be the ones that draw the most out of people.
Right.
And on a fundamental level, when you walk through the halls, are people smiling, or do they look like are they just watching the clock?
Or even high-fiving.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
a big deal. So key actions that leaders take to build culture.
I think the most successful ones I've seen are, it always comes back to communication.
That's great.
I really value that the idea of mutual understanding and expectation management. If you're bringing someone on as a new employee, you need to be clear on what you expect of them, and they need to be clear as to what they can expect from the company. So at a basic level, now they know how to do this job.
Right.
But then you also have to understand, are they hoping to grow with the company? Are they hoping to move up and develop and acquire new skills? Maybe they want to learn how to eventually transfer into a different department. If their manager or leaders understand that, you can help cultivate that and use that motivation to encourage that growth. You can now set the expectation of here's what you need to do to get there. And now they've got something to strive for, and there is no ambiguity about what they need to do today or what they need to do tomorrow to get to that.
You're both aligned. How many
Yeah.
employees out there are not aligned with it? And they don't know.
Exactly.
They don't know what's expected of them, and
They spend
expectations
all
is-
year thinking things are okay, haven't gotten yelled at, then they go to their annual review, and that's the first time they get any real feedback.
What do you think of annual reviews?
I hate them. I think that, I think it's important at the end of the year to take a look back.
Yes.
But if you haven't been having regular meetings along the way, making sure people are on track,
Yeah.
You're-
Candid conversations
Yeah.
all day, every day.
you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
An annual review
Why
means
wait
nothing.
a year to tell somebody you're either happy with them or not happy with them? You should be talking to them all the time.
Yeah.
And have that culture.
Yes, absolutely, and it's easy enough to set that up. I guess it's easy enough to build that out if you're starting your own organization. For organizations that don't have that kind of mindset or have that structure built into their kind of standard processes, that can be tougher. You've got to convince people that this is not a waste of your time, this 15-minute touch base once a month, or every couple of months having a half-hour meeting with them.
Right.
It really goes a long way towards, again, having that alignment and making sure if someone starts veering off track, you get them right back on.
Exactly.
We did that in previous organizations, and it was a massive difference in everyone's performance, and it forced us to be more transparent and to communicate. And putting us as managers in that position, I was always grateful for that, because then I learned even more. about the employees and about, oh, wait, they've got great ideas on what we can change.
I love the books that you brought up.
Oh, yes. when it comes down to just developing a sense of accountability and creating a good culture, the two books that come to mind are Tribal Leadership and Extreme Ownership. So for people not familiar with tribal leadership, it really talks about kind of different levels of organizations. And some of the fascinating things are regarding that are how it focuses starting at a low level on me and eventually moves to we, and there's a whole spectrum. But I really loved that approach, and I started listening for that in my different offices.
Yes.
And the office that was kind of leading the charge was very much, we didn't care about the competition, we didn't care about hitting sales goals, we cared about doing our jobs better every day and waiting to see what the results were from that.
And knowing that there's going to be impact by doing that. I mean, they just have that zero doubt, that full confidence that what I'm working on will have impact and people will like it and we will be market leaders and whatever else by doing things better every day.
Yeah, exactly.
And working as a team and not I.
Yes, it was like, we don't want egos here. If you have a better idea, great, give it to us.
And I love how the book talks about just positivity, right? It's all about mindset.
Yes.
And if you're in that negative mindset, you can't be a tribal leader.
Yeah, I always thought that was fascinating. Fascinating aspect of the book. It starts with kind of like, why me? Everyone's out to get me. I mean, I just have to take care of myself. To the next stage, somewhat counterintuitively for some people, is why not me? Why do they get to have this nice life and I don't? But then that's the kind of the breakthrough that some people need to say, wait a minute, what do I need to do to get there? And I think that's that hardest step.
That's awesome. And there's so much overlap to health coaching.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, it's the same. It's literally the same. The other book?
Oh, the other book, The Extreme Ownership.
Yes.
So this was written by former Navy SEALs, and they talk about the leadership lessons they learned while engaging in different operations around the world. And some of the key lessons are that there's no bad leaders, or no bad teams, only bad leaders.
Right.
And the fundamental principle that I took with me was accountability.
Yes.
It really starts with accountability. You cannot blame your team for doing something wrong, because if you really dig down deep enough, they didn't have the tools, the knowledge, or the support to do it right. And that comes back to the leader.
And if you dig even, I was going to say, if you dig even deeper, it's your fault for not doing it.
Exactly.
Right? So it's not, somebody didn't put the right policies in place and the right training, and I didn't do it. And when you take that full accountability, that's when the magic starts happening.
Yeah, and you see
again, same with health coaching.
Yeah.
When someone can say, okay, I take full accountability. I didn't prioritize my health. I was, not disciplined. I knew I needed to eat better. I knew I needed to exercise more, but I never did it. I take accountability. Now's the time.
Yeah.
Magic happens.
Yes, exactly. And those are hard truths.
Yeah, they're hard truths.
I was there myself when I was living overseas, especially. I traveled around a lot, so you're eating out all the time.
Right.
Japanese culture kind of embraces going out with your colleagues and having a few drinks, maybe going to karaoke afterwards. And I partook quite a bit, and especially when I was in a management position, there was kind of an expectation if someone wanted to meet after hours to discuss something, it was some off-the-record discussions, and I felt obligated.
Right.
But it turned into going out 5 or 6 nights a week.
Right.
And drinking too much, eating too much, not making the time, or being able to wake up in time to get to the gym in the morning.
Right.
So I finally had kind of a wake-up moment when I came back to the States, and I got on a scale here and realized I'd put on 50 pounds. So I went back to Japan after that visit. I filled up here on Grandma's cooking. Yeah. Then I got on the plane, went back to Japan, and said, okay, working out every day for at least 20 minutes to half an hour. I'm going to start changing my diet, and I've got to stop the drinking.
Nice.
So I just started limiting everything, and tried to do it in a manageable way. I didn't like cut everything cold turkey. I tried to find sustainable ways of incorporating the healthier habits again in my life.
Sounds like you took extreme ownership over your health.
I tried to.
Good, nice. Any specific experiences that you can share on, and you have any additional color you want to add on defining or creating company culture?
For creating company culture, it really does start with that level of accountability and communication. I think those are always going to be some of the two of the fundamental aspects of it. You have to be clear on your mission and values, and so that's where you start laying those expectations and managing expectations, and you have to be accountable and live up to those values and that mission. And I think if you start there, no matter what you're trying to accomplish, if you attract the right people to those, to your values, to your mission, your efforts for sustainability or your efforts for holistic human improvement, you're going to get more out of them.
And you talked about in our prep for this, like the fact that your managers let you run with things, and it wasn't just about the hierarchy. I thought that was really important to talk about.
Yeah, that it was difficult at first because you run into that this is how it's always been done mentality,
right.
And then I was very, very fortunate after several arguments to the point where I really thought my job was at stake.
Yeah.
I had to put my foot down, and I said, I really believe this is the right way to go to address this situation. You've asked me to fix this. This is how I want to fix it. And if it doesn't work, I get it. Then I'll be transferred, I'll be fired, I'll resign.
You took that risk. When
yes.
Most don't.
It was scary, and I was like, okay, I don't want to have to go crawling home with my tail between my legs, but I really believe that we were on the right track and that there were some changes we could make that were going to really make a huge difference. And thank goodness it all worked out. We saw the improvements we expected. The
right.
business results were better than expected. And so that helped convince my boss, okay, this is
across the board, you talked about, absenteeism and retention and like every number, it was obvious.
Yeah, our engagement, really that's where you see the numeric value and engagement of employees. They're showing up to work more often. They're using less vacation time, or they're much more respectful with how they use it. They don't just
right.
call in and say, I'm taking a day off. They plan ahead because they know the reason they're going in that day.
Right.
They know how much they need to contribute to the team, and they don't want to let people down.
Right.
And then the general productivity went up. People were seeking out, they were calling us asking for advice on what can I do more? What can I learn? Can I help with training in the future?
That's awesome.
Yeah, people wanted to step up. And once we showed that to our bosses, the impression went from, oh, they just want to do the minimum they can to get by, to suddenly, oh my gosh.
Exceeding expectations. And that's the non-KPI, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like when your culture is right and you've got the right people in the right seats on the right bus.
Yeah.
Everything is gelling when everyone's trying to exceed expectations and helping others do it.
Yeah.
It's such a culture builder. That's great.
And then when times are tough, they pull through together, and they're very forgiving of mistakes.
Nice.
I think that was probably that's another thing you see with a strong culture.
Yeah.
Leadership is going to make mistakes.
Beyond KPIs and job titles
Mm-hmm.
is the next one. So we talked about listening and so on. You've talked about just being genuine, like you care.
Yeah.
So talk about your experiences there.
Well, I think we talked a little bit about how to cultivate that successful culture, a good work culture, and that having a genuine interest is vital for managers, for team leads, for senior leadership. They have to be looking at more than just the business when you're dealing with people. You have to have a genuine care and concern, a desire to understand and empathize with your team. Because once you understand the different aspects and facets of life that they're struggling with, it quite often gives you a clear perspective on what you need to do to support them so that they can give you their best at work. And they
both
appreciate
in
it.
work and out of work.
Yes.
I mean, it's important.
Yeah. So, of course, a lot of companies have employee assistance programs. So that's, an easy thing to hand out. Here's a flyer, call our EAP person.
Right.
But for the manager to actually take the time to sit down and say, okay, is there anything I can do?
Right.
What's bothering you? What are you stressed about right now?
Let's talk it out.
Yeah, and then reassuring them like, hey, we're here for you. You've got a solid job here. You've got a future here. We'll work through this. That just having that reassurance and that security can go a long way.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Okay, so throughout the career, what are some untraditional or bold things that you have done? We talked about you taking that risk.
Yeah, that was probably the most bold. That happened a couple of times, and I'm not trying to be too dramatic about the whole situation, but I felt that my job was on the line, and I was pretty convinced that if we didn't see results, I would probably be getting demoted at least.
Right.
But yeah, taking chances is important, and standing up, standing your ground, but doing your homework. Don't do it because you feel like doing it. Do the research, and we did a lot of research. We looked at better ways of organizing, read a lot of books like Tribal Leadership and
Right.
Extreme Ownership and a dozen others to try to get a better understanding of what we could do better. And we found some basic principles, and when we wanted to apply them, there was a little kickback. That's not how we've done it. That's not what we do.
Right. Just people throw their hands up all the time. This is just how it is here.
Yeah.
And it's so again, it's easy to say it, but it's not easy to live it. Like you're in constant problems. It's almost easier to fix the problem than it is to as big of a mountain as it feels like you're climbing.
Yeah.
Because if and when you take that risk and get there, that's
the long run versus short run perspectives. It's like in the short run, it's a lot easier for me to do nothing today.
right.
But in the long run, man, if I do a couple of things today, tomorrow, next week, and next month, in 3 months, everything's going to be so much easier. And
Exactly.
I'll be accomplishing twice as much.
Perfect.
So
Perfect.
yeah, being able to demonstrate that is tough. So yeah, taking a stand, that was probably the boldest thing. Other things we did were really, we questioned the traditions essentially. At one point, we took our new hire training and we said, you know what, this isn't meeting the needs of our employees. And so
Yeah.
we're training them. Then we send them out to go to a client and they're not sure what to do. They're uncomfortable. They're faking it until they make it and burning out
Yeah,
from the
that's not
stress. So once we realized that, we stripped it down to the bare bones. We knew exactly what we needed to cover, and we took new approaches to covering it. We developed just a whole new methodology, utilizing more modern adult learning concepts, using cyclical learning cycles for important messages to be repeated and then called back on again, and created tiered chunking. So we're going to teach you this today. Now we're going to add a little bit more onto that tomorrow.
Right.
And then we're going to add a little bit more on, and then we're going to come back and review this again. Just so people really got comfortable. By the end of a week, they felt like they basically invented the process. So that was another one of those stands we had to take. That was probably very untraditional in the sense of we basically were telling authority that, hey, what you guys put together isn't working.
Right.
So another scary moment.
What about safety?
Safety is
You're
of course,
manufacturing, so safety is a big deal.
yeah, it's huge and it's always got to come first. I think depending on the organization you're with, everyone agrees that safety is one of the most important things you can have, if not the most important. But how do I want to phrase this? The true knowledge, I guess, of a lot of the safety procedures and processes and how to do things, sometimes that gets lost over the years because people, again, fall into routines.
Right.
And one of my favorite quotes from a colleague of mine from England was, Ryan, there's a fine line between finding your groove and falling into a rut. And I think all of us fall into a rut from time to time and we don't recognize it because it feels like that groove.
Right.
And this applies to safety too. You feel like, okay, we've been doing everything safe all this time, nobody's been injured, but you have to stay updated. And
Right.
you have to make sure you've got someone that's knowledgeable to come around, because eventually someone's going to leave an extension cord out, or someone's going to start storing something maybe in a place they shouldn't. Someone's going to leave an electrical box unlocked because no one's going to come look at this. And that's where you start seeing a drop off.
Right.
So I've been very fortunate. The people that I've worked with that were responsible for safety and helped carry me along to help educate me on it.
Yeah.
They've been extremely knowledgeable, and they are unforgiving when people start slacking.
That's great.
And they're also very patient though when people are willing to learn. And so, each organization I've been with, the safety person has been one of the key partnerships, because, again, I want to make sure that people are coming to work and going home feeling good about what they did that day, and they're making sure that they're physically feeling good.
Because it takes one just bad day and being in that rut to ruin everything. Like,
Yes.
literally.
Mm-hmm. And that rut can be, you can be physically hurt or mentally hurt. There's so many different ways that can impact somebody. And so the more we can help people stay out of that, the less likely they are to forget something, to forget a safety procedure, or to start arguing with a fellow coworker or something.
So how do you measure success when it comes to culture?
Measuring success, there's of course different metrics for any business. From the CEO standpoint, hey, are we doing good? Are we profitable? Are our operations costs going down?
Those are easy metrics.
Yeah, that's everyone sees that.
Culture
goes into the
metrics.
quarterly
Culture.
reports.
How does the CEO know the culture of his company? So it's not just did we make money and is the company growing?
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
obvious balance sheet metrics.
Yeah, I think we touched on it a little bit before. It's when you see those attendance metrics rising, when people are really showing true respect for each other, and understanding and forgiveness when someone has a bad day, and support when someone maybe is just having a rough day. They step in and help out a little bit.
Right.
It's those interactions to me that indicate whether or not you have a very good, strong culture. And then also listening to how they talk about the challenges, how they talk about the successes, or how they talk about the problems that they're
Right.
suffering through.
And what do you mean by the way they talk about it? Like, are they being productive about it versus complaining about it? Is that like an example, or?
Yes, that's a great example. Are they having productive discussions? How do we move forward? Or are they complaining like, oh, poor us, we got stuck with this unrealistic expectation? Or, even worse, are they trying to point the finger at everybody else?
Right, that's the worst.
Yeah, you've stepped in the wrong direction somewhere along the lines if employees feel that they have to blame. If they don't feel safe in making mistakes or not achieving a goal, then there's a leadership gap there.
Right.
And that's something that is the responsibility of anyone managing others. You have to make people feel safe and let them know it's okay to make a mistake. The main thing is that we take accountability for it, we focus on fixing it, and we learn from it and don't keep repeating it.
Exactly.
If you can do those, your organization is going to be supremely successful. You're going to keep people because they do feel it's like a safe, secure environment. And once that fear is gone, that fear of being blamed or having to take blame for something,
Yes, I love that.
they can accomplish so much more. All that mental energy is not going to protecting themselves, it's going towards contributing.
Again, overlap with coaching here. We teach that and coach that the overwhelming majority of fear is delusional. Like, you just have fear and anxiety over 90+% of it never happens.
Mm-hmm.
So why even have it?
Yeah.
Just have the confidence.
The times I've kept myself up all night worrying over something that the next day was like, oh,
it wasn't even a thing.
Yeah. Nobody cares. Okay, great. So,
Right.
but then it'll come up again. I think all of us fall prey to it from time to time. But the more you get into that habit of pushing the fear aside and saying, you know what, we're going to survive this.
Yeah, let's be productive and let's figure it out.
Yeah.
So, what role does well-being play? in your experience, or ensuring that the team feels good, people feel good?
I think this always brings me back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yep.
And I think there's a tie-in with kind of a corporate responsibility, and even tie-in to sustainability, not only to the environment and the communities, but to your employees. You need to help them become sustainable. Employee well-being is a huge part of that, in the sense that we need to make sure their needs are being met as fellow human beings to start with, and as colleagues and coworkers, as contributors to our mission. So it's, starts with the basics. We're paying them a livable wage. We're providing them a safe work environment. We're enabling them and supporting them in being successful in their roles. And then ideally, if you can get them through those first 3 stages of that hierarchy, they're getting to a point where they have a sense of belonging, a sense of teamwork and camaraderie within the organization. And then, now they've got the space to actually maybe go above and beyond, and ideally get to that self-actualization.
Yep.
It's kind of fitting also with the tribal leadership stages. I think it's fascinating to me, to kind of the overlap psychologically between how we hit those levels and how we support employee well-being, whether it's through wellness programs that have an actual impact, not just here's your EAP or flyer, or here's your step count contest.
Right.
As much as I enjoy step count, I've done
So
it.
you told me about an experience where in a previous company they had step challenges to.
In a previous organization, we did it regularly once a year, and it was the first time I'd ever actually formally done one. I'd done some other kind of health and wellness related activities in the past, but this was the first time I was counting my steps every day, and I loved it. I was up to about 5 miles on average per day, and I kept up with it. We did it for a month, and I kept up with it for the next year afterwards. I had to change my lifestyle a little bit with more recently, so I'm not getting all those steps in. But I found that it was really easy to sustain once I got into it and I started competing against myself.
So everyone in the company sustained?
Yeah, everybody, every single person. They're still walking to this day. Well, that was the fun part, of course, is during that month where we did this step count contest, everybody was out all day long. You'd see people walking out in the parking lot, rain, snow, sunshine, and then we got to the end of the month, and it went from, at any given moment, seeing 10 or 15 people walking around in various places to not seeing anyone out there for hours. I would still do my daily walk at lunch, and there was one other group of employees I'd see out there all the time, and we just kind of gave each other that nod, like, yeah, we're keeping up with this.
Right.
But essentially everyone else stopped. They did their contest, and then that was it.
That's what's great about the step challenges. It got you to prioritize your health, but the overwhelming majority are doing it for the teamwork and maybe a gift card or points on their wellness program, whatever else, but it doesn't necessarily sustain because their intrinsic motivation was not to start prioritizing their health. It was, I gotta walk X amount of steps every day for a month and that's it.
Yeah, it was purely extrinsic.
Right.
That intrinsic motivation wasn't there at all for most of the people. And it was all based on, oh, I gotta participate in this thing so my department looks good, my boss doesn't get bad at me, or I need to do this because I know I should probably get more exercise, and this is a great excuse to try it. Or, hey, maybe I'll get that gift card.
Right.
But then that kind of motivation fades, as of course you
all
know.
motivation fades. Discipline stays.
And there's the trick right there.
There's the trick. So I guess a question I can ask you is, and you've touched on it a lot, again, there's so much overlap to health and wellness and human resources because we care about these human beings, and we want them to be healthier and happier and more productive and amazing ripple effects to their families and coworkers and clients and so on. So how do you help employees create intrinsic motivation in a workplace?
Wow, that's a very tough question. I don't like that question at all. Creating intrinsic motivation is probably one of the hardest things that you can do when it comes to dealing with other people.
Yes.
Lord knows I tried to convince my sisters 100 times to behave differently growing up. They never listened.
Right.
So I think it really comes down to from developing awareness, or starts with developing awareness for employees. They need to know that we value their health, and they need to be thinking whether or not they value their health.
But not just health, just in business. Sorry, I didn't mean it to be a health and wellness question.
Oh, no.
I meant like back to what you were talking about in communication and how do you create that intrinsic motivation that they give a shit about the company and their job and growth and...
Well, it comes back to the same thing. There has to be that awareness. They have to understand what their role is. They have to have their expectations managed. And I apologize, I'm repeating myself with some of these talking points.
I'm just trying to summarize the interview because it's almost done. But, I guess I just want to summarize it all.
Yeah, I think in summary then, it comes down to communication and real genuine empathy with each other. Whether you're the boss or you're the new guy, if you're actively encouraged and made aware of how to get more information that you need to do your job better, and are willing to take on new information, willing to admit when you make mistakes, or always being open to learning something new, if you can create that kind of awareness within individuals, you're going to see some of them jump right on it, and they're going to find that intrinsic motivation to, oh, I want to get better for whatever reasons. Whether it's for their own personal development, professional growth, or they're trying to grow because they have a family to support and they're trying to create a more secure future for themselves.
Yes.
They have to define that for themselves. So I think it's difficult from the outside. The only thing you can do is really say, here are some of the reasons. Here are some of the whys.
Yep.
Here's why we're doing what we're doing. That brings to mind Simon Sinek. Starting with why. Like if you can get them to understand why it's important that we do things, why what we're doing is important,
and why it should be important to them.
Yeah. Then you say, here's what we're doing and how we're doing it. It's just a mental shift that can suddenly get people, thinking from the right direction.
Right.
Instead of what do I need to do, it becomes what can I do.
Nice.
So, yeah.
I love that. I think that's a good place to end. I think everything you said was great. There's a lot of gold nuggets, and I love it. And thank you for really preparing and taking this seriously and having excitement for it.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
And I've been very excited, and sorry if I started talking a little too much at times.
No, it's all great. It's all great. Thank you. Okay, man.
Thank you.